My name is Olivia, and I destroyed the man I loved because I couldn't bear to watch him love someone else. I used lipstick, lies, and anonymous text messages to rip them apart. I won. He became mine. And then he left me for someone younger, prettier, and smarter. Now I'm 27, selling my body for drugs, and dying from the inside out because karma is real. If you've ever let jealousy consume you, hit that like button, subscribe to my 10 p.m. stories, and stay until the end because this confession will haunt you. My name is Olivia, and this is my confession. 5 years ago, I was the girl everyone noticed. Beautiful, charismatic, confident. I graduated from the American School of London's fashion program, surrounded by 25 talented, creative classmates. Among them was Henry, the boy with the perfect smile and the kind eyes who made my heart stop every time he walked into class. But Henry didn't choose me. He chose Isabella. Quiet, serious, intellectual Isabella, who wore no makeup and spoke in paragraphs instead of punchlines. She wasn't prettier. She wasn't funnier. But she had something I didn't, his heart. I couldn't accept that. So I destroyed them. Methodically. Cruelly. And I won. This is the story of how jealousy turned me into a monster. How revenge poisoned everything I touched. How I lost the man I loved, my dignity, my future, and my soul. This is my fall. And I'm telling you now, hoping you'll learn from my mistakes before it's too late. The first time I saw Henry, I knew I wanted him. It was orientation day at the American School of London, fashion program, 2018. 25 students crammed into a studio space that smelled like coffee and ambition. Everyone was trying too hard, bold lipstick, vintage band tees, carefully curated dishevelment. Henry walked in late wearing a simple black hoodie and jeans. No pretense. No performance. Just presence. He had dark hair that fell across his forehead, green eyes that seemed to see through bullshit, and this quiet confidence that made everyone else's peacocking look desperate. When he introduced himself, his voice was low and warm. American accent. Grew up in California. Moved to London for the program. I wanted him immediately. I wasn't subtle about it either. I positioned myself next to him in every class. Laughed at his jokes. Touched his arm when we talked. Wore my best outfits, my boldest makeup, and my most expensive perfume. I was Olivia fucking Martinez, half Spanish, half British, all confidence. I'd never had trouble getting male attention before. But Henry was polite, friendly, and completely uninterested. Then Isabella arrived. Late to orientation because she'd been stuck on the tube. Mesibun. No makeup, oversized sweater, carrying a tote bag covered in library stamps. She looked like she'd just rolled out of bed and couldn't care less what anyone thought. Henry's face changed when he saw her. Not dramatically, just a subtle shift. Like someone had turned on a light behind his eyes. She sat down, pulled out a worn copy of The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir and started reading while the program director talked. Henry stared at her like she was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. And I felt something cold and sharp twist in my chest for the first time. The triangle formed within the first month. Henry and I were paired for a project on deconstructing streetwear. We spent hours in the studio together, sketching, draping fabric, and arguing about silhouettes. I thought we were connecting. I thought the late nights meant something. You're incredibly talented, he told me one evening, examining my rendering of an asymmetrical jacket. You have this natural eye for proportion. We make a good team, I said, leaning closer. Don't you think? He smiled. We do. But he never leaned back. Isabella was in a different project group, working on sustainable fashion with 3 other students. She rarely spoke in class discussions, but when she did, everyone listened. She had this way of cutting through the noise and saying something that made you rethink everything. One day, our fashion history professor asked about the ethics of fast fashion. The class erupted in passionate, surface-level arguments. Isabella waited until everyone finished, then quietly said, "We're treating symptoms instead of disease. Fast fashion exists because we've built an economy on disposability. on planned obsolescence, on convincing people their worth is tied to constant consumption, until we address the psychological architecture of late-stage capitalism. We're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. The room went silent. Henry looked at her like she'd just solved world hunger. After class, I found them in the corridor. He was asking about the book she was reading, something about feminist theory and consumer culture. She was explaining it with her hands, animated in a way I'd never seen her. They didn't notice me watching. That's when I started hating her. Not dislike. Not annoyance. Pure, visceralatrade. Because she had something I couldn't manufacture. His intellectual respect. Beauty I could do. Charisma I could do. But making Henry look at me the way he looked at her when she talked about theory? That was beyond my reach. By second semester, Henry and Isabella were inseparable. Not dating yet. Just always together. Studying in the library. Getting coffee between classes. Walking to the tube station in the evenings. He'd carry her tote bag. She'd steal fries from his lunch. I watched them constantly. Obsessively. Tracking their movements like a detective. You're staring again, my friend Chloe said one afternoon in the cafeteria. It's getting creepy. Leave. I'm not staring. I'm observing. You're spiraling. He's clearly into her. She's not even pretty, I hissed. She wears the same 3 outfits on rotation. She doesn't style her hair. She has no sense of presentation. Maybe he doesn't care about presentation. Every man cares about presentation. But Henry didn't. He cared about substance. About ideas. About the way Isabella could analyze a fashion collection through the lens of cultural appropriation, labor exploitation, and environmental impact all in one breath. I started changing my approach. Started reading the books she read. Started talking about theory in class. Started trying to be more serious, more intellectual, more like her. It didn't work. Henry would nod politely when I brought up Foucault or Butler, but his eyes never lit up, because he could tell I was performing, that I'd skimmed Wikipedia articles, instead of actually engaging with the texts. Isabella didn't perform. She just was. The breaking point came in March. We had a group critique of our midterm collections. Isabella presented a line of reconstructed second-hand garments, with a manifesto about textile waste and the violence of disposability. Henry stood up during the Q&A. This is the most important work in this room, he said, looking directly at her. This is what fashion should be. She blushed. Actually blushed. And I wanted to burn the entire fucking studio down. They started dating officially in April. I found out through Instagram. A photo of them at a pub, Henry's arm around her shoulders, both smiling at something off camera. The caption was Isabella's. Good company and better conversation. 23 people commented congratulations. I stared at that photo for 2 hours. Straight. Chloe found me crying in the bathroom. Liv, you have to let this go. I can't. He chose her. It's done. But why? What does she have that I don't? Chloe looked at me with something like pity. Authenticity. She's not trying to be anything other than what she is. And Henry responds to that. So I'm supposed to just accept that I'm not good enough? You're good enough for someone. Just not for him. But I didn't want someone. I wanted Henry. And the fact that he'd chosen boring, plain, unglamorous Isabella over me felt like a personal attack on everything I believed about myself. I started following them more carefully. They moved in together in May, a flat in Shoreditch, with exposed brick and terrible plumbing. I knew because Isabella posted a photo of their new place on her Instagram story. I drove past their building one night, saw them through the window, cooking together. Henry was chopping vegetables while Isabella stirred something on the stove. They were laughing. She'd thrown a dish towel at him. He'd pulled her into a kiss. It was disgustingly domestic. Disgustingly happy. Disgustingly everything I wanted and didn't have. That's when the plan started forming. Not consciously at first. Just a dark thought in the back of my mind. A whisper that said, What if they broke up? What if Isabella wasn't in the picture anymore? What if I could make that happen? I told myself I was just fantasizing, just imagining scenarios to make myself feel better. But fantasies have a way of becoming blueprints. The lipstick incident happened in June. I planned it carefully. Spent 2 weeks tracking Henry's routine. He went to the Westfield Mall every Saturday morning to buy coffee at a specific cafe and browse the bookstore. I showed up wearing a red dress and my signature lipstick, a distinctive burgundy shade, called Blood Rose that I wore constantly. Everyone in our program associated that color with me. Olivia. Henry looked genuinely surprised when I accidentally bumped into him near the bookshop entrance. What are you doing here? Shopping. I lied. What about you? Just killing time before meeting Bella for lunch. Bella. The nickname made me want to vomit. We chatted. I kept it light, friendly, and non-threatening. Talked about summer plans and final projects. When we hugged goodbye, a casual, friendly hug, I pressed close and deliberately rubbed my lips against his shirt collar. The stain was perfect. Obvious. Damning. That night, I bought a burner phone and SIM card from a sketchy shop in Camden. Cash. Only. No records. I created a fake Instagram account using stock photos and a fake name. Then I messaged Isabella. You don't know me, but I thought you should know your boyfriend isn't faithful. Check his shirt next time he comes home late. She didn't respond, but I could see she'd read the message. Phase 2 began the next day. More messages. Carefully crafted to sound like they came from someone with inside knowledge. He talks about you like you're a burden. Says you're too serious. Too boring. I saw him with a girl at a bar in Soho. They looked very comfortable together. Ask him about the lipstick stain. Ask him why he didn't mention running into someone. I was planting seeds of doubt, watering them with lies, watching from a distance as their perfect relationship began to crack. The texts worked faster than I expected. Within a week, I could see changes. Isabella posted less on social media. Henry looked stressed in class. They weren't touching as much when they walked together. I kept pushing. More messages. More manufactured evidence. I'd see them around campus and casually mention seeing Henry places he hadn't been. Just loud enough for Isabella to overhear. Oh, you were at that gallery opening in Mayfair? Funny, I could have sworn I saw Henry there last week. Isabella's face would tighten. He was home studying. Must have been someone who looks like him then. I was gaslighting her through proximity, making her question her own memory, her own judgment, her own relationship. Chloe confronted me in the bathroom one afternoon. What the fuck are you doing, Olivia? I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Everyone's noticed you've been acting weird around Henry and Isabella. The comments, the looks, the suddenly running into Henry everywhere. I can't help where I run into people. You're playing a dangerous game. I'm not playing anything. If their relationship is falling apart, that's their problem. Chloe grabbed my arm. Listen to me. This jealousy is going to destroy you. Let it go before you do something you can't take back. But I'd already done it. The texts, the lipstick, the lies. I was already past the point of no return. The breaking point came in July. I saw them fighting outside the library. Isabella was crying. Henry was trying to touch her face, but she kept pulling away. I can't do this anymore, she said, loud enough for me to hear from where I was pretending to look at my phone. I don't know what's real anymore. You say one thing, but I keep getting these messages. What messages? Bella, I haven't done anything. Then why do I feel crazy? They broke up in August, right before graduation. Isabella moved out of their flat. Henry looked destroyed, hollow-eyed and quiet in class. But I saw opportunity in his grief. I started slowly, offering comfort, being present without being pushy, bringing him coffee, sitting with him in the studio late at night when he couldn't sleep. I heard about you and Isabella, I said carefully one evening. I'm sorry. Thanks. His voice was flat. I don't even know what happened. One day we were fine. The next she was convinced I was lying about everything. Sometimes relationships just run their course. Not ours. Something broke. Or someone broke it. He looked at me then. Really looked. And for a moment I thought he knew. That he'd figured out what I'd done. But then his face softened. Thanks for being here, Liv. You've been a good friend. Friend. The word was knife. But I smiled. Always. Graduation came and went. Our class scattered. Some to design houses, some to graduate programs, some back home to figure out their next move. Henry stayed in London and got a job at a sustainable fashion startup. Isabella disappeared completely. I heard she'd moved to Berlin. I stayed close to Henry. So close he barely noticed I was always there. Coffee dates, gallery openings, late-night conversations about design and meaning and loss. I miss her, he admitted one night, drunk on wine in his tiny apartment. I missed the way she challenged me, made me think. You can have that with someone else, I said, touching his hand. You can have that with me. He looked at our hands. At me. At the obvious offer hanging in the air between us. Maybe, he said quietly. Maybe I could. I kissed him that night. He kissed me back. And I felt victorious. Vindicated. Victorious. We started dating officially in September, exactly 1 year after Henry and Isabella's relationship began. The symmetry felt intentional. Like I'd rewritten their story with myself as the protagonist. But winning Henry didn't feel the way I'd imagined. He was distant. Distracted. Present physically but absent emotionally. When we had sex he'd close his eyes like he was somewhere else. When we talked he'd nod, but I could tell he wasn't really listening. Are you happy? I asked one night, curled against him in bed. Yeah, he said. Of course. But his voice was empty. I started changing myself to fit what I thought he wanted. Stopped wearing bold makeup. Started reading more. Talked less about fashion gossip and more about theory. Tried to be serious, intellectual, and substantive. I became a performance of Isabella. An imitation. A counterfeit. And Henry could tell. You don't have to change for me, Liv, he said one evening. I liked you the way you were. Did you? Because you never seemed that interested before. The words came out more bitter than I intended. Henry went quiet. What does that mean? Nothing. Forget it. But we both knew what it meant. That I'd noticed. That I'd been watching. That I'd been waiting for Isabella to be out of the picture, so I could step into her place. The cracks started showing around month 6. Arguments over nothing. Him forgetting plans. Me constantly asking if he still loved me. The relationship was rotting from the inside, built as it was on manipulation and lies and desperation. One morning, I woke up to find him already dressed, staring out the window. We need to talk, he said. My stomach dropped. About what? I think we both know this isn't working. I knew. Of course I knew. But hearing him say it felt like dying. We stayed together for 3 more months after that conversation. Neither of us had the courage to end it. We just kept going through the motions, hoping something would change. Hoping the love I wanted would magically appear. Then the photos arrived. I was at work. I'd gotten a position as a junior designer at a mid-tier fashion brand, when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The photos showed Henry with a young woman. Early 20s, blonde, beautiful in that effortless way that required no effort at all. They were at a coffee shop. His hand was on her arm. They were laughing. The message below was simple. Thought you should know. The sender? Isabella. I felt everything and nothing simultaneously. Rage. Betrayal. Vindication. Because this proved Henry was exactly as unfaithful as I'd made Isabella believe he was. Except now it was real. The woman was Ava. 23 years old. American. Worked in marketing at Henry's company. I found her Instagram easily. She'd tagged the coffee shop in a recent post. I confronted Henry that night. Threw my phone at him. Screamed until my throat hurt. How long? Leave. How long? 2 months. But nothing's happened. We're just what? Just friends? Just coworkers? Just emotionally cheating. His silence was confirmation. We fought for weeks. Ugly, vicious fights where I said things I can't take back and he said nothing at all because he'd already checked out. The end came via text message. Cowardly and cold. I'm leaving London. Taking a position in New York. Ava's coming with me. I'm sorry it ended this way, but I can't keep pretending anymore. I hope you find what you're looking for. Take care of yourself. That was it. 1 year of my life. All my schemes and manipulation and sacrifice ended with a text message. The first week after Henry left, I convinced myself I was fine. I went to work, smiled at colleagues, designed mediocre garments for mediocre collections, came home to my empty flat and watched mindless television until I fell asleep. The second week, the cracks started showing. I'd cry in the bathroom at work. Couldn't focus on projects. Started snapping at my assistant. My supervisor called me into her office. Olivia, is everything all right? Your work has been inconsistent lately. I'm fine. Just dealing with a breakup. Take some time if you need it. But I need you focused when you're here. I didn't take time. I pushed through. Worked longer hours. Stayed late. Volunteered for extra projects. Anything to avoid going home to the silence. The third week, I started drinking. Not socially. Not casually. Drinking to disappear. Wine with lunch. Vodka after work. Whiskey before bed. Enough to blur the edges of consciousness. Enough to silence the voice in my head that kept saying, "This is your fault. You did this. You destroyed everything." By week 4, I'd stopped going to work altogether. Called in sick. Then just stopped calling. Let my phone fill with messages from my supervisor, my colleagues and HR. I spent days in bed scrolling through Henry's Instagram. He'd posted a photo with Ava in New York. They were at some rooftop bar, the skyline glittering behind them. She was kissing his cheek. He looked happy. Actually happy. In a way he never looked at me. The realization hit like a freight train. I'd destroyed 2 relationships, his with Isabella, mine with him, and gained nothing but emptiness. I opened a bottle of wine at 10 a.m. By noon I'd finished it. By 3 p.m., I was searching online for something stronger. Something that would make the pain stop completely. If this story is making you uncomfortable, good. It should. Like this video, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and comment karma if you believe every action has consequences. The drug started casually. A friend from my fashion program, someone I barely knew, mentioned she had something that could help me feel better. Cocaine at first. Just little bumps at parties. Then, bigger lines at home alone. It worked. For a while. The drugs made me feel powerful again. Confident. Like the old Olivia, who commanded attention and took what she wanted. But the high never lasted long enough. I started needing more. Spending money I didn't have on drugs I couldn't afford. I'd lost my job by this point, fired for excessive absences and poor performance. My savings dwindled. Rent became a problem. That's when someone introduced me to ice. Crystal meth. The drug that promises everything and delivers destruction. The first time I smoked it, I understood why people threw their lives away for this feeling. Every nerve ending lit up. Every insecurity vanished. I felt invincible, beautiful, worthy, for about 6 hours. Then came the crash. Worse than any hangover. Worse than any heartbreak. A black hole of depression and self-loathing that made me want to claw my own skin off. The only solution was more ice. And more. And more. I stopped answering my phone. Stopped seeing friends. Stopped caring about anything. Except the next hit. My flat became a disaster. Dishes piled in the sink, trash overflowing. Curtains drawn permanently against daylight. My appearance deteriorated. I'd look in the mirror and barely recognize the woman staring back. Sunken cheeks. Dark circles. Skin that had lost its glow. Hair that hadn't been washed in days. But none of it mattered when I was high. One night, around 3 a.m., I got a message from Chloe. "Liv, people are worried about you. Please call me." I stared at the message for 10 minutes. Then I blocked her number and took another hit. The money ran out by month 3 of unemployment. Rent was overdue. Bills were piling up. My landlord started sending threatening letters. Evie sold everything valuable: jewelry, designer clothes, electronics. But it wasn't enough to sustain my habit. I knew what came next. Had known it would come to this eventually. Sex work. Not the sanitized, empowering version people talk about in think pieces. The desperate, dangerous version. Meeting strangers from apps. Going to hotels. Doing things I never imagined I'd do for cash that disappeared within hours. The first time was the hardest. A businessman mid-50s, staying at a Hilton near Heathrow. He answered the door in a bathrobe, handed me £200, and barely looked at my face. I showered for an hour afterward. Scrubbed my skin until it was raw. Cried into a towel so the neighbors wouldn't hear. The second time was easier. The third time, I barely felt anything. By the 10th time, I'd perfected the performance. Smile. Laugh at bad jokes. Pretend to enjoy it. Take the money. Leave. Get high. Forget. Repeat. I told myself it was temporary. That I'd get clean, get a job, get my life back. But temporary became routine. Routine became survival. Survival became identity. I was no longer Olivia Martinez, fashion designer. I was a body. A transaction. A way to fund. The only thing that made life bearable. My family stopped calling after I missed my sister's wedding. Couldn't afford the flight, I'd told them. The truth was I'd been too high to remember it was happening. Friends had already disappeared. Former classmates from the American School of London had moved on with their lives, working for major brands, starting their own labels, building careers I'd once dreamed of. And me? I was meeting strangers in cheap hotels, selling pieces of myself for drugs that were killing me slowly. This was my life now. This was what jealousy had built. The worst night came 6 months into this hell. A client I'd seen before, early 40s, worked in finance, always rough but paid well, got violent. Started choking me during sex. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't scream. Saw black spots dancing in my vision. He only stopped when his phone rang. Business call. He answered it like nothing had happened while I gasped for air on the hotel bed. He threw £300 at me afterward. For the inconvenience. I should have reported him. Should have gone to the police. But what would I say? That I was a drug addict prostitute who'd consented to meet a stranger, and things got out of hand? I took the money and left. Bought enough ice to forget the feeling of his hands around my throat. That's when I started having the dreams. Nightmares, really. Isabella's face. Henry's face. My own face from 5 years ago. Bright, ambitious, and full of potential. In the dreams, Isabella would ask, "Was it worth it? Destroying my life to get what you wanted?" I'd wake up screaming. The guilt was worse than the drugs. Worse than the degradation. Worse than the violence. Because the drugs and sex work were symptoms. The guilt was the disease. I'd destroyed Isabella's relationship based on lies. Spent a year manipulating and scheming. Won Henry through deception. And for what? He'd left me anyway. Left me for someone younger, prettier, and more authentic. Someone who didn't have to pretend or perform or manufacture a personality to be loved. I'd become exactly what I'd accused Isabella of being in my jealous mind. Not enough. Except Isabella had never been the problem. She'd been enough for Henry. Exactly enough. I was the one who was broken. Empty. Performing femininity and desirability like it was a job because I had no idea who I actually was underneath. And now I was paying the price. Every single day. In every degrading way possible. I tried to get clean in month 8. Stopped taking clients. Locked myself in my flat. Tried to detox alone because I couldn't afford rehab and was too ashamed to ask for help. The withdrawal was hell. Sweating. Shaking. Hallucinating. Feeling like insects were crawling under my skin. Vomiting until there was nothing left. I lasted 4 days. On day 5, I called my regular dealer. On day 6, I was back on the street. Back in the hotels. Back in the cycle. But something had changed. I couldn't pretend anymore. Couldn't compartmentalize. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw the truth. I was dying. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. Just slowly eroding. Like a building collapsing one brick at a time. My teeth were starting to rot from the meth. My skin had a grayish tint. My hair was falling. Out in clumps. I looked closer to 40 than 27. Men still paid me, but the rates were dropping. I wasn't the stunning girl from fashion school anymore. I was just another desperate addict willing to do anything for cash. One night, a client asked how I'd ended up here. Bad choices, I said. Everybody makes bad choices. What was yours? I almost told him. Almost confessed the whole story. The jealousy, the manipulation, the lipstick on Henry's collar, the anonymous texts, the way I'd systematically destroyed people's happiness because I couldn't handle rejection. But I stayed quiet. Because saying it out loud would make it real. Just bad luck, I said instead. He didn't believe me. Nobody ever did. Because bad luck doesn't leave lipstick stains and send anonymous messages. Bad luck doesn't plot and scheme and deliberately hurt people. Bad luck is passive. What I'd done was active. Intentional. Evil. And I was living in the hell I'd created for myself. The Instagram post appeared in month 10. Isabella had posted for the first time in over a year. A photo of her at a gallery opening in Berlin. She looked radiant, healthier, happier, and glowing in a way I'd never seen when she was with Henry. The caption read, "Healing isn't linear, but it's worth it. Grateful for second chances and the courage to start over." The comments were full of support. Friends celebrating her. Strangers inspired by her resilience. I stared at that photo for hours. This woman whose life I'd deliberately destroyed had rebuilt herself, had moved to another country, had started over, had found peace. And I was rotting in London, selling my body for drugs, barely surviving. The comparison was unbearable. I wrote her a message. Deleted it. Wrote another. Deleted that too. What could I possibly say? Sorry I ruined your relationship with elaborate lies because I was jealous? Sorry I used lipstick and anonymous texts to gaslight you into believing Henry was cheating. Sorry I'm a terrible person who destroyed everything good in my life and yours? I wanted to apologize. Wanted to confess. Wanted absolution. But I was too much of a coward. Instead, I sent Henry a message. First contact in almost a year. I need to tell you something. He read it immediately. Didn't respond for 3 hours. Then, Olivia, I don't think we should talk. I've moved on. You should too. I did something terrible. To you. To Isabella. I need you to know. Stop. Whatever it is, I don't want to know. I'm happy now. Let me stay happy. I stared at those words. Let me stay happy. As if my confession would contaminate his new life. As if the truth was a poison I'd inject into his fresh start. He blocked me 30 seconds later. I hit rock bottom on a Tuesday in December. A client refused to pay after we'd finished. Said I wasn't worth the agreed price. Called me. Names I won't repeat. Pushed me out of his hotel room half-dressed. I sat in the hallway of that Travelodge, pulling my clothes on, crying so hard I thought I'd suffocate. A cleaning woman found me. Asked if I needed help. Called me love, in a thick Nigerian accent and offered me tea. I broke down. Told her everything. The jealousy. The lies. The manipulation. Henry. Isabella. The drugs. The sex work. The complete destruction of everything I'd once been. She listened quietly, holding my hand. You know what you need to do, she said finally. I can't. I've tried. No, child. You haven't tried. You've given up. There's a difference. She wrote down an address. A recovery center in South London. Free. No judgment. No questions. Go tomorrow. Before you talk yourself out of it. I took the paper. Crumpled it in my fist. Went home and got high instead. But something shifted that night. In the haze of the drugs, I had a moment of clarity. I'd spent 5 years running from the consequences of my actions. 5 years trying to numb the guilt. 5 years destroying myself because I couldn't face what I'd done. But the guilt wasn't going away. The shame wasn't disappearing. The consequences weren't evaporating. They were waiting. Patient. Eternal. Following me into every hotel room, every high, every morning I woke up hating myself. I could keep running. Keep using. Keep selling pieces of myself until there was nothing left. Or I could stop. Face it. Own it. Try to rebuild from the ruins. The choice was simple. The execution would be the hardest thing I'd ever done. But for the first time in years, I felt something other than despair. I felt possibility. I walked into that recovery center on a Wednesday morning, 3 days after the hotel hallway incident. Withdrawing. Shaking. Terrified. The intake counselor was a woman named Patricia. Mid-50s, kind eyes, no nonsense demeanor. She'd seen thousands of women like me. "What brought you here?" she asked. "I destroyed my life because I was jealous of someone's relationship. And now I can't stop destroying myself." She didn't flinch. "Good. At least you're honest about it." The program was brutal. Group therapy. Individual counseling. Detox with medical supervision. 12-step meetings. Workbooks. Confronting every terrible thing I'd ever done. In the group, I met other women with similar stories. Not identical. Nobody had my specific brand of vindictive jealousy, but the same underlying theme. We'd made choices that spiraled out of control, and now we were trying to claw our way back to humanity. "I stole from my mother to buy drugs," one woman said. "I abandoned my children," said another. "I walked into that recovery center on a Wednesday morning, 3 days after the hotel hallway incident. Withdrawing. Shaking. Terrified. The intake counselor was a woman named Patricia. Mid-50s, kind eyes, no nonsense demeanor. She'd seen thousands of women like me. "What brought you here?" she asked. "I destroyed my life because I was jealous of someone's relationship. And now I can't stop destroying myself." She didn't flinch. "Good. At least you're honest about it." The program was brutal. Group therapy. Individual counseling. Detox with medical supervision. 12-step meetings. Workbooks. Confronting every terrible thing I'd ever done. In the group, I met other women with similar stories. Not identical. Nobody had my specific brand of vindictive jealousy, but the same underlying theme. We'd made choices that spiraled out of control, and now we were trying to claw our way back to humanity. "I stole from my mother to buy drugs," one woman said. "I abandoned my children," said another. "I hurt people who loved me," I said. "Deliberately. Methodically. And I can't take it back." The counselor leading the group asked, "Can you forgive yourself?" "No." "Why not?" "Because what I did was unforgivable. I ruined someone's relationship based on lies. I manipulated a man into dating me. I became a monster." "And what are you now?" I thought about that question for a long time. "I'm someone who wants to stop being a monster." Then that's where we start. The detox was agony. 7 days of hell. Sweating. Vomiting. Hallucinating. Crying. Begging. For just one more hit. The staff stayed with me. Held my hand through the worst of it. Reminded me why I was there. "You're doing this because you want your life back," Patricia said on day 4 when I was convinced I'd die from the withdrawal. "What if there's nothing left to get back? Then you build something new." 3 months into recovery, I wrote letters. Not to send. The counselors said it was part of the process. Articulating the harm I'd caused. Taking full accountability, even if the recipients never read the words. The first letter was to Isabella. "I destroyed your relationship with Henry. The lipstick on his collar was mine. The anonymous messages were mine. Every doubt, every suspicion, every moment of pain, I orchestrated all of it because I couldn't stand watching him love you instead of me. I was jealous, vindictive, Cruel. You didn't deserve any of it. You were just a woman in love with a good man, and I couldn't accept that he'd chosen you. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know I can never undo the damage. But I'm sorry. The second letter was to Henry. I manipulated my way into your life. I sabotaged your happiness with Isabella because I wanted you for myself. And when I got you, I couldn't even be authentic. I tried to become her because I knew that's what you wanted. I wasted your time and your heart. You deserved better than my lies. The third letter was to myself. You became the villain in your own story. You let jealousy poison you. You made choices that hurt innocent people. You destroyed yourself trying to possess something that was never meant to be yours. You need to forgive yourself eventually. But first you need to actually become someone worth forgiving. I read the letters in group therapy, cried through all of them. Other women cried with me. Do you think you'll ever send them? Someone asked. No. They've moved on. They don't need my confession reopening old wounds. Then who are the letters really for? I looked down at the pages. Me. They're for me. To admit what I did. To stop lying to myself. Good. That's the first step toward actual change. 6 months sober. I got a job at a charity shop in Brixton. Nothing glamorous. Sorting donations. Steaming clothes. Working the register. Minimum wage. But honest work. Clean work. Work that didn't require me to sell pieces of myself. My manager was an older woman named Ruth who'd been in recovery herself 20 years earlier. You're good at this, she said one afternoon, watching me arrange a window display. You have an eye for it. I studied fashion design. Long time ago. What stopped you? I stopped myself. Made choices that destroyed my career before it even started. Ruth nodded. Most of us in recovery have that story. The promising future we burnt down. Do you ever get it back? The future. You don't get the same future. That timeline closed when you made the choices you made. But you can build a different future. Not worse. Not better. Just different. That hit me hard. Because I'd been mourning the life I could have had. Successful fashion designer, respected in my field, happy relationship, stability. But that life died when I sent that first anonymous text to Isabella. When I smeared lipstick on Henry's collar. When I chose jealousy over integrity. I couldn't resurrect that timeline. I could only build something new from the ruins. At night, I'd go to NA meetings. Stand up. Say my name. Tell the truth. I'm Olivia and I'm an addict. I've been clean for 6 months. I did terrible things to get here. I hurt people. I hurt myself. But I'm trying to be better. People would clap. Welcome me. Share their own stories of destruction and redemption. And slowly, painfully slowly, I started believing that maybe redemption was possible. Not forgiveness from the people I'd hurt. They didn't know me that. But perhaps forgiveness from myself. Perhaps a life worth living despite everything I'd destroyed. 1 year sober, I saw Henry and Ava on Instagram. They were engaged. The photo showed them on a beach somewhere tropical, her hand displaying a ring, both of them glowing with happiness. I waited for the jealousy, the rage, the old familiar poison. It didn't come. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Relief that he'd found happiness. That my toxicity hadn't permanently damaged his ability to love. That he'd moved on and built a life that had nothing to do with me. I closed Instagram and went for a walk. Ended up at the Thames, watching the water move. A year ago, I'd been selling my body for drugs. Dying slowly in hotel rooms. Convinced I deserved every terrible thing happening to me. Now I was sober. Working. Attending therapy. Building tiny foundations of a life worth living. It wasn't the life I'd imagined at 22, graduating from fashion school with dreams of runway shows and magazine features. But it was mine. Honestly earned. Built from the ruins of my worst choices. I thought about Isabella often. Wondered if she was happy in Berlin. Hoped she'd found peace. Wished I could tell her I was sorry without disrupting whatever healing she'd Achieved. Maybe someday I'd send that letter. Maybe not. What mattered was that I'd stopped running from the truth. Stopped numbing the guilt. Stopped destroying myself as punishment for destroying others. I'd done terrible things. I'd let jealousy turn me into someone unrecognizable. I'd hurt people who didn't deserve it. I'd paid the price in ways I'm still paying. But I was alive, sober, trying. And that was more than I deserved. More than I'd hoped for in those dark hotel rooms. My name is Olivia. I'm 27 years old. This is my confession. And this is my warning. Jealousy destroys everything it touches, including you. If this story affected you, please hit that like button and subscribe to my 10 p.m. stories. Share this with someone who needs to hear that redemption is possible, even after the worst mistakes. Comment below. Have you ever let jealousy control you? How did you break free? You're not alone in this. See you tomorrow night at 10 p.m. with another confession that will shake you. Thank you for listening to mine. Some stories end with redemption. Some with destruction. This one ends somewhere in between, with a woman learning to live with the consequences of her choices. Tomorrow night, another confession. Another truth. Someone couldn't carry it alone anymore. Another 10 p.m. story. Be here. These voices need to be heard.